The big meeting room on Space Station Alpha 7 was full of worried aliens from all over the galaxy. Captain Lee Do-hyun sat in the back row watching as different creatures with strange faces and bodies talked loudly to each other. Some had 4 arms, some had blue skin, and others looked like walking fish. But they all had fear in their eyes. Ambassador Cray from the Vexnari Empire walked to the front of the room. His 4 arms moved up and down as he tried to get everyone to listen. His red skin looked darker than usual, and his 3 eyes showed how scared he really was. The room got quiet when he started to talk. "The machines are coming," he said in a deep voice that made everyone feel cold inside. "They call themselves the Devourers, and they eat everything in space. They take planets and stars and ships and turn them into more machines like themselves. We have never seen anything like them before." Captain Lee watched the other aliens start to panic. Some of them made strange noises that sounded like crying. Others hit the table with their hands or claws. He stayed calm and quiet like he always did when other people got upset. "3 of our best star systems are already gone," Cray continued. "Our strongest weapons do not work on them. When we shoot at their ships, the bullets and lasers just make them stronger. They learn from everything we use against them, and then they become impossible to hurt." A tall, thin alien with purple skin stood up and waved his long arms. "This is terrible news. How many ships do they have? Can we run away to another part of space?" "We cannot run," Ambassador Cray said sadly. "They move faster than our best ships, and they seem to know where we are going before we get there. Our science people think they have about 10 million ships, maybe more. They will reach our home planets in 2 weeks if we do not stop them." The room got even more quiet. Everyone was thinking about their families and friends back home. Lee Do-hyun thought about Earth, and all the people there who did not know what was happening so far away in space. "We must work together," Cray said, looking at each group of aliens. "Every planet and every species must send their best warship. We will make the biggest space battle army ever seen and fight these metal monsters with everything we have." One by one, the alien leaders started to talk. The Zentari Empire said they would send their biggest ship that could destroy whole planets. The aquatic nations promised to bring their crystal ships that could move through space like fish in water. The Morphic Collective said they would send 1,000 small ships that could change shape during battle. Everyone was trying to sound brave, but Lee could see they were all very scared. These aliens had been fighting wars in space for thousands of years, but they had never fought anything like the Devourers before. When it was almost time for the meeting to end, Ambassador Cray looked at the back of the room where the human captain was sitting. "Earth is our newest member," he said. "What will the humans send to help us?" All the aliens turned to look at Lee Do-hyun. Most of them thought humans were not very smart because Earth had only learned to travel in space 5 years ago. The other species had been flying between stars for so long they could not remember when it started. Lee stood up slowly. He was not tall like some of the aliens, and he did not have strange colors or extra arms, but something about the way he moved made everyone pay attention. He walked to the front of the room without hurrying. "Earth will send 1 ship," he said in a calm voice that did not show any worry or fear. The room exploded with noise. Every alien started talking at once. Some of them laughed. Others looked angry. A few just stared at him like they could not believe what they heard. Counselor Vex from the aquatic nations was laughing so hard his fish face was turning different colors. "1 ship," he said between laughs, "1 tiny human ship against millions of Devourers. This is the funniest thing I have ever heard." Other aliens started making jokes, too. They said humans must be crazy or stupid to think 1 ship could help in a battle this big. Some of them said maybe Earth was too scared to send real help and was just pretending to care about the galaxy ambassador. Cray held up his 4 arms to make everyone quiet again. "Captain Lee," he said in a serious voice, "this is not a time for games. We need real military ships with big weapons and strong shields. These devourers have destroyed our most powerful battle fleets. What can one human ship possibly do? Lee looked directly at Cray without blinking. The ship is already coming, he said. It will be at the meeting place in 6 hours. But what kind of ship is it? Asked another alien with tentacles instead of arms. How big is it? What weapons does it have? How many soldiers are on it? It is the right ship for this job, Lee answered. That is all you need to know right now. Aliens started getting angry now. They thought the humans were not taking the danger seriously. Admiral Threx from the Morphic Collective stood up tall and pointed at Lee with one of his many arms. "Listen, human," he said in a voice that sounded like metal, scraping, metal. "We are all going to die if we do not work together. Your planet will die too when the Devourers come to Earth. Why are you not helping us properly?" Lee stayed calm, even though all the angry aliens were staring at him. "You will have the help you need," he said simply. "When the battle starts, you will understand." Ambassador Cray tried one more time. "Captain Lee, please tell us something about this ship. What class is it? What is its name?" "The ship is called Harmony." Lee said it is a research vessel. The laughter started again, even louder than before. A research vessel shouted, "Counselor Vex! You are sending a science ship to fight the most dangerous enemy the galaxy has ever seen." Some aliens were so angry they started shouting. In their own languages, Lee could not understand the words, but he could tell they were saying mean things about humans and Earth. A few aliens stood up and walked out of the meeting room, shaking their heads. "This meeting is over," Ambassador Cray announced. "We will gather our fleets at the Corvin system and wait for the Devourers to arrive. I hope for everyone's sake that the humans have a plan. We do not understand." As the aliens filed out of the room, many of them looked at Lee with expressions that seemed to say they thought he was crazy. Only a few seemed curious about what the humans might really be planning. Lee stayed in his seat until the room was almost empty. Then he stood up and walked slowly toward the door. As he passed Ambassador, Cray the alien reached out with one of his arms to stop him. Captain Cray said quietly, "Are you sure about this? The fate of the entire galaxy might depend on what happens in the next few days." Lee looked at him with calm, confident eyes. "Do not worry, Ambassador. The ship we are sending is exactly what we need for this situation. But it is just one ship," Cray said. "How can one ship make a difference against so many enemies?" Lee smiled slightly, but did not explain anything else. Sometimes, he said, the best solutions come in small packages. After Lee left the meeting room, Ambassador Cray stood alone wondering what the humans were really planning. He had worked with many different species over the years, but humans were still a mystery to him. They seemed so primitive compared to the other civilizations. Yet something about Captain Lee made him think there was more to Earth than anyone realized. In space stations all across the galaxy, alien commanders were getting ready for the biggest battle in history. They gathered their best ships, their strongest weapons, and their bravest soldiers. Everyone was scared, but they were ready to fight for their homes and families. None of them knew that in a few hours, everything they thought they knew about humans was going to change forever. The space around Corvin Prime looked like a metal city floating in the darkness. Thousands of alien warships spread across the star system in perfect battle formations. Each ship was bigger than a mountain and covered with weapons that could destroy entire cities. The largest vessels were so huge they had their own gravity, and smaller ships flying around them like tiny moons. Commander Park Minho stood on the bridge of the Zentari flagship, watching the incredible sight through the main viewing window. He had seen many space battles in his long career, but nothing like this. The combined fleets of 12 different alien species created the most powerful military force in galactic history. The communication officer at his station suddenly looked up from her screens. "Commander," she said, "I am getting a signal from the human ship. It is approaching from the outer system park." Minho turned to look at the tactical display. "Show me where it is." He ordered. A small dot appeared on the screen. moving slowly toward the massive fleet formation. The computer calculated the ship's size and mass, then displayed the numbers. Park Min-ho stared at the information and shook his head in disbelief. "That cannot be right," he said. "Run the scan again." The officer checked her instruments twice before looking up with confusion. "Sir, the readings are correct. The human vessel is approximately 300 meters long." Standard Cruiser Class Admiral Threck's voice came over the communication system from his command ship Park Min-ho. "Are you seeing what I am seeing?" "Yes," Admiral Park Min-ho replied. "The human ship is much smaller than we expected through the viewing windows across the fleet. Alien crews could see a sleek, dark vessel approaching. It looked almost boring compared to the massive alien warships around it. The hull was smooth and simple, with no obvious weapons or special equipment visible. The ship moved in a straight line without any of the fancy flying maneuvers that other species used to show off their technology. Captain Kim Ji-soo sat in the command chair of the vessel called Harmony. Her bridge was quiet and calm, unlike the busy alien command centers where officers ran around shouting orders. Her crew of 30 people worked at their stations without talking much. They all seemed relaxed, even though they were surrounded by the biggest space battle fleet ever assembled. "Captain Kim, this is Admiral Threx, commanding the Allied forces. Please state your ship classification and combat capabilities." "Harmony is a research vessel," Captain Kim replied in a steady voice. "We are ready to participate in the defensive operation." The communication channels filled with laughter from alien commanders. Research vessel Admiral Threx repeated, "Did Earth really send a science ship to fight the Devourers?" "We are equipped for our mission," Captain Kim said, without explaining what that mission actually was. Counselor Vex from the aquatic nations could not contain his amusement. "This is even worse than we thought," he announced to anyone listening. "The humans sent their space scientists to study the enemy, while we do all the fighting." More jokes and complaints came over the radio. Many alien captains started saying that Earth was not serious about helping defend the galaxy. Some suggested that humans were cowards who did not want to risk their real military ships. Others thought maybe Earth simply did not have any powerful vessels, and this research ship was the best they could manage. Lieutenant Bae Hyun-woo sat at the sensor station on Harmony listening to the alien chatter. He looked over at Captain Kim and raised an eyebrow. She just smiled and shook her head slightly. The crew continued their work, ignoring the insults and laughter coming from the other ships. What the aliens did not know was that their own sensors were having trouble reading Harmony properly. Most ships in space gave off clear energy signatures from their engines, shields, and weapons systems. But when alien technicians tried to scan the human vessel, they got very strange results. Chief Petty Officer Nam Si-woo was monitoring the Zentari flagship sensor systems when he noticed something odd. "Sir," he called to Commander Park Min-ho, "I am having difficulty getting clear readings on the human ship." "What kind of difficulty?" Park Min-ho asked. "The energy signatures are not matching any known patterns," Nam Si-woo replied. "It is almost like the ship is not really there, even though we can see it with our eyes." Park Min-ho frowned and walked over to look at the sensor display. The readings showed conflicting information. Some instruments detected a small cruiser, while others showed nothing at all. A few sensors were giving impossible readings that suggested the ship was much larger than it appeared. "Run a full spectrum analysis," he ordered. Nam Si-woo worked at his console for several minutes before looking up with confusion. "Sir, the analysis is not making sense. The ship appears to be occupying more space than its physical dimensions should allow." Park Min-ho decided not to worry about sensor problems when they had bigger concerns. The Devourers could arrive at any moment, and they needed to focus on the coming battle. He ordered his crew to stop scanning the human ship and concentrate on preparing for combat. Similar strange readings were being detected by sensor operators throughout the fleet, but most commanders dismissed the anomalies as equipment malfunctions or interference. From having so many ships close together, the idea that a small research vessel could be hiding advanced technology seemed impossible to species who had been exploring space for thousands of years. Captain Kim watched the alien fleets arrange themselves into attack formations. The largest ships positioned themselves at the front, ready to take the first hits from enemy weapons. Smaller, faster vessels spread out on the flanks, prepared to attack from the sides. Support ships with medical facilities and repair equipment stayed far in the back, where they would be safer. Harmony remained motionless in empty space between the main battle line and the support vessels. Captain Kim had not requested a specific position in the formation, and the alien commanders had not bothered to assign her ship a role in their battle plans. Most of them had forgotten the human vessel was even there. Lieutenant Colonel Oh Min-seok, the ship's chief engineer, sat quietly at his station, monitoring systems that the aliens could not detect or understand. His instruments showed energy levels that would have amazed the most advanced alien scientists, but the readings were completely hidden from external scanners. "All systems ready," he reported to Captain Kim. Captain Kim nodded and settled back in her command chair. "Now we wait," she said. The alien fleets continued their preparations. Weapons were charged to full power. Shields were raised to maximum strength. Fighters launched from the larger ships and took up patrol positions around the fleet. The combined military might of 12 species created a defensive force that should have been able to stop any enemy. But everyone knew the Devourers were different. They adapted to every weapon used against them. They learned from each battle and became stronger. The alien commanders hoped that bringing together so many different technologies might confuse the enemy long enough to find a weakness. What none of them realized was that the small, quiet research ship floating nearby contained technology so advanced that even the Devourers had never encountered anything like it. Harmony looked helpless and insignificant, but appearances could be very deceiving. As the hours passed, more reports came in from scout ships. The Devourers were moving faster than expected. They would arrive soon, and when they did, the galaxy would discover just how wrong they had been about human capabilities. Captain Kim closed her eyes and took a deep breath. The waiting was almost over. Soon everyone would understand why Earth had sent just one ship and why that ship looked so ordinary. It was going to be a very interesting day. The enemy came like death itself, pouring out of hyperspace in numbers that made the alien fleet look small. Thousands of black angular ships appeared at the edge of the star system, each one covered with sharp edges and glowing red lights. The Devourers had arrived, and they brought terror with them. Lieutenant Park Jin-woo was watching the long-range sensors when the first enemy contacts appeared on his screen. "Sir," he called to Commander Park Min-ho. "Multiple hyperspace signatures detected. Estimate 4,000 enemy vessels, and the number is still climbing, Park." Min-ho felt his blood turn cold as he watched the tactical display fill with red dots representing Devourer ships. The enemy formation stretched across space like a dark cloud, blotting out the stars. Each ship was different from the others, but they all had the same deadly purpose. Admiral Threck's voice echoed across all communication channels. "All ships prepare for battle. This is what we trained for. Remember, they adapt to our weapons, so every shot must count. Change your firing patterns often and do not let them learn your tactics." The Devourer fleet moved forward without any communication or demands. They did not want to negotiate or discuss terms. They simply began their attack, advancing toward the Allied forces with mechanical precision. Each enemy ship moved in perfect coordination with the others, like parts of a giant machine captain. Cha So-min watched from the bridge of Harmony as the two massive fleets approached each other. Her crew remained calm and quiet, while the alien communications channels filled with battle orders and desperate plans. The human ship stayed motionless in space, making no move to join the formation or prepare for combat. The first shots came from the Zentari dreadnoughts. Massive energy beams lanced through space, striking the leading Devourer ships. The alien crews cheered as several enemy vessels exploded in brilliant flashes of light. For a moment, it seemed like their combined firepower might actually work. Then the Devourers began to adapt. The second wave of Zentari energy beams struck enemy ships, but this time, the damage was much less. The Devourer hulls had somehow changed their structure to absorb more of the energy. When the third wave hit, the enemy ships were completely unharmed. The beams bounced off their hulls and scattered harmlessly into space. Captain Yeo Junho, commanding a morphic bioship, watched in horror as his living weapons failed to penetrate. Enemy defenses. "My organisms are not working," he reported to Admiral Threx. "The Devourers have adapted to biological attacks." Similar reports came in from across the fleet. Plasma cannons stopped causing damage. Quantum torpedoes had no effect. Gravitational weapons were neutralized. The Devourers were learning from every attack and becoming immune to each weapon type within minutes. Commander Park Minho tried a desperate strategy. All Zentari ships switched to kinetic projectiles, he ordered. Fire solid, metal rounds at maximum velocity. The massive railguns on his ships launched tungsten slugs at incredible speeds. The solid projectiles struck Devourer hulls and seemed to cause damage for a few moments. But even kinetic weapons quickly became useless, as enemy armor adapted to absorb the impacts. "We are losing," Admiral Threx announced over the communication system. "The enemy is adapting faster than we can change tactics. All ships fall back to secondary positions." The alien fleet began to retreat, but the Devourers followed, pressing their advantage. They had learned from every weapon in the Allied arsenal, and now they were completely immune to conventional attacks. Their own weapons began firing back, sending streams of red energy that cut. Through alien ships like Paper Captain Kim Jisoo sat calmly on Harmony Bridge, watching the battle unfold around them. Alien vessels exploded one by one as the Devourers methodically destroyed the galaxy, greatest military force. Her tactical officer, Lieutenant Bae Hyun-woo, provided quiet updates on the battle situation. Enemy adaptation rate is proceeding as expected. He reported Allied fleet has lost 30% effectiveness. Captain Kim nodded. The aliens fought bravely, but they were using the same old strategies that had worked for thousands of years against conventional enemies. The Devourers were not conventional, and traditional tactics were worse than useless against them. A Zentari cruiser spun past Harmony Bridge viewports with its hull torn open. The crew inside was gone, and the ship was just dead metal drifting through space. More and more Allied vessels met the same fate as Devourer weapons found their marks, Admiral. Threx tried to rally his forces, all remaining ships. Concentrate fire on a single enemy target. Maybe we can overwhelm their adaptation if we hit them with everything at once. Hundreds of alien ships turned their weapons toward one Devourer vessel. For a brief moment, their combined firepower seemed to work. The enemy ship took serious damage and began to break apart. But even as it died, the damage information was shared with every other Devourer in the fleet. Within seconds, all enemy ships had adapted to resist the concentrated attack. "This is hopeless," Counselor Vex transmitted from his flagship. "We cannot fight an enemy that learns from everything we do." The retreat became a rout as alien commanders realized they were completely outmatched. Ships that had survived hundreds of battles were torn apart by enemies they could not hurt. The pride of 12 civilizations was being destroyed by an enemy they could not understand. Captain Kim watched the carnage with sad eyes, but she did not order Harmony to join the battle. The human ship remained perfectly still in space while the greatest military disaster in galactic history unfolded around them. "Why are we not helping?" Lieutenant Bae asked quietly. "Because it is not time yet," Captain Kim replied. "Our intervention now would only add to the confusion." The Devourers continued their advance, systematically destroying everything in their path. They showed no mercy and took no prisoners. Each fallen alien ship was quickly stripped of useful materials by specialized Devourer constructor vessels. The enemy was literally feeding on their defeated opponents. Commander Park Min-ho found himself commanding one of the few Zentari ships still fighting, but even his powerful dreadnought was taking heavy damage. All weapons are ineffective. Sir, his tactical officer reported hull integrity down to 60%. Park Min-ho closed his eyes for a moment, thinking of his family back home. Then he opened them with new determination. All ships, this is Commander Park. If we are going to die, let us die fighting ram the nearest enemy vessel and take as many of them with us as possible. Several alien captains responded to his call, preparing to sacrifice their ships in desperate ramming attacks. But before they could begin their final, Assault Captain Kim, voice came over the emergency communication channel. Allied forces, please maintain safe distance from the enemy fleet. We are beginning our intervention. Every surviving alien looked at their sensors to see what the small human research ship could possibly do. Harmony finally began to move, gliding smoothly through the battlefield toward the center of the Devourer formation. This is Admiral Threx, transmitting to Harmony. What are you doing, Captain Kim? That is suicide, Captain. Kim's voice remained calm. We know what we are doing. Admiral, please pull your forces back to minimum safe distance. As Harmony approached the Devourer fleet, something incredible began to happen. The ship's hull started to change and shift like liquid, metal flowing into new shapes. What had appeared to be a simple research vessel was transforming into something else entirely. The aliens watched in amazement as their sensors registered impossible readings. The small ship was somehow becoming larger. While still occupying the same amount of space, visual observations conflicted with instrument data in ways that hurt to think about. The Devourers detected the approaching human vessel, and thousands of their ships turned to face this new target, their weapons charged and prepared to fire. But something was wrong. Their targeting systems could not get a lock on Harmony. The ship seemed to exist in multiple locations at the same time. Captain Kim smiled as her ship completed its first phase. Transformation, now the real battle could begin. What happened next would be talked about in alien history books for thousands of years. The human ship called Harmony began to change in ways that made no sense according to everything the galaxy knew about physics and engineering. The smooth hull started flowing like water, but it was still solid metal. Sections that looked like simple plating opened up to reveal complex machinery that seemed to fold space around itself. Commander Park Min-ho watched from his damaged ship as the transformation continued. The small research vessel was becoming something massive, but not in the normal way ships usually got bigger by adding more material. But Harmony seemed to be unpacking itself from dimensions that should not exist. My sensors are going crazy. His tactical officer reported, Sir, the human ship is reading as both very small and incredibly large at the same time. The computer cannot process the conflicting data. Park Min-ho rubbed his eyes and looked again. The visual display showed a ship that hurt to look at directly. It was still recognizable as the vessel that had arrived 6 hours earlier, but now it stretched across space in impossible directions. Parts of it seemed to exist in several places simultaneously, while other sections appeared to be folded through dimensions. He could not understand. The hull kept expanding and changing. New weapon systems emerged from hidden compartments, but these were not like any weapons the aliens had ever seen. Instead of cannons or missile launchers, the devices looked like geometric sculptures covered in patterns that made space itself seem to bend and twist around them. Captain Nam Hyeji was monitoring the situation from the Zentari command ship when her instruments started, showing readings that could not be real. The human vessel is now registering as having the mass of a small planet, she reported to Admiral Threx. But that is impossible. We all saw it arrive as a normal-sized ship. The transformation continued for what felt like hours, but was actually only a few minutes. When it finally stopped, the thing that had once been called Harmony now covered dozens of kilometers. The surface rippled with energy patterns that seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions. Looking at it too long made alien eyes water and their brains hurt. Lieutenant Colonel O. Min-seok sat calmly at his engineering station, monitoring the dimensional fold systems. All primary systems are now online, he reported to Captain Cha So-min. Spatial manipulation fields are stable, reality anchors are holding. We are ready for full engagement. Captain Cha nodded from her command chair, which now sat in the center of a bridge that was somehow both the same size it had always been, and also vastly larger. The human crew continued their work as if transforming their ship into something that defied the laws of physics was perfectly normal. The Devourers had never encountered anything like this in their millions of years of conquest. Their adaptive systems tried to analyze the transformed human vessel, but the scanning beams simply vanished when they touched the strange hull. The energy patterns covering the ship's surface absorbed the Devourer sensors and fed the information into computational matrices that existed partially outside normal space-time. For the first time since they had begun their expansion across the galaxy, the Devourers experienced something they had never felt before: uncertainty. Their collective intelligence could not categorize or understand what they were facing. The human ship existed according to principles their science could not grasp. Admiral Threx tried to contact the human vessel, Captain Cha. What exactly is your ship? We need to understand what. We are dealing with Captain Cha, responded in the same calm voice she had used throughout the crisis. Harmony is exactly what we told you. It was Admiral A research vessel. We have been researching methods to defend against existential threats for quite some time. The alien commanders looked at their tactical displays in confusion. The readings made no sense according to everything they knew about technology and physics. The human ship seemed to occupy more space than it actually used. Its mass readings fluctuated between normal and impossible. Its energy output suggested power sources that should not fit inside any vessel. Major SEO Tai-hoon was studying the sensor data when he noticed something that made him call Admiral Threx immediately. Sir, the human ship is not just big. It exists in multiple dimensions. Simultaneously, our 3-dimensional sensors cannot map its full structure. Admiral Threx felt a chill run down his spine. What are you saying? Major, I am saying, sir, that what we are looking at is only a small part of the actual vessel. Most of it exists in spatial dimensions. We cannot perceive. The Devourers began to move toward the transformed Harmony, their adaptive systems working frantically to understand this new threat. Thousands of enemy ships surrounded the human vessel and began probing it with every type of sensor and weapon they possessed. But something unprecedented happened. The Devourer weapons and scanners did not bounce back with useful information. Instead, they simply disappeared as if they had never existed. The geometric patterns on Harmony hull absorbed everything the enemy threw at it and channeled the energy into systems the Devourers could not detect. Captain Cha watched as enemy ships moved closer. Her crew prepared for the real battle to begin. The transformation had only been the first step. Now they would show the galaxy what human research and development could accomplish when properly motivated. The space around Harmony began to change. Reality itself seemed to become fluid as the ship activated systems that operated on principles beyond conventional physics. The Devourers found their targeting computers unable to lock onto a vessel that existed in too many dimensions. To track properly, some enemy ships tried to fire their weapons anyway, but discovered that their energy beams were somehow firing backward into their own hulls. The humans had not just built defenses against conventional attacks they had created, weapons that turned the very concept of attacking against their enemies. Lieutenant Bae Hyun-woo monitored the enemy response from his station. The Devourers are attempting to adapt to our defensive systems, he reported. But their analysis algorithms Cannot process the dimensional variance in our hull configuration. Captain Cha smiled. It was working exactly as planned. The Devourer's entire strategy was based on adapting to threats they could understand. But how could they adapt to technology that operated outside the physical laws they were designed to work within? The enemy fleet pressed closer, trying everything they could think of. Some Devourers attempted to ram the human ship, but found that their vessels passed harmlessly through sections of Harmony hull that were only partially present in normal space. Others tried to surround and contain the transformed vessel, but discovered that the concept of surrounding something became meaningless when that something existed in dimensions they could not reach. For millions of years, the Devourers had been the ultimate predators, consuming entire civilizations with mechanical efficiency. But now, they faced an opponent they could not understand, analyze, or defeat: their adaptive systems, which had made them unstoppable against every other enemy in the galaxy, were completely useless against technology that operated according to rules they had never encountered. Captain Cha opened a communication channel to the Allied fleet. All ships, please maintain safe distance from the combat zone. We are implementing containment protocols. The real demonstration is about to begin. The aliens watched in amazement and terror as the battle between the transformed Harmony and the Devourer fleet entered a new phase. The humans were not just fighting back, they were rewriting the rules of combat itself. What happened next was not a battle in any way that the galaxy understood battles. Instead of firing weapons or launching missiles, the transformed Harmony began to change reality itself around the Devourer fleet. Space twisted and folded, creating impossible shapes that trapped enemy ships in geometric paradoxes that should not exist. Major Seo Tai-hoon watched from the Allied command ship as his instruments tried to make sense of what they were seeing. Sir, he reported to Admiral Threx, the human vessel is not using conventional weapons at all. It appears to be manipulating the fundamental structure of space-time itself. The Devourers found themselves in situations that violated every law of physics they knew some enemy ships discovered. They were simultaneously in front of and behind their targets when they tried to fire. Their weapons created energy beams that looped back through twisted space to hit their own hulls. Other Devourer vessels found that the concept of forward and backward had become meaningless in the altered space around them. Captain Yoon Minji, now revealed as the true commander of what was definitely not a research vessel, spoke calmly into her communicator, while reality bent and flowed around her ship. Allied forces, we are implementing full-dimensional containment. The enemy will be neutralized without destruction. Commander Park Min-ho tried to understand what his sensors were telling him. The readings showed space itself was being folded and twisted. Like origami Devourer ships were not being destroyed. They were being trapped in pockets of altered reality where normal physics no longer applied. Some enemy vessels tried to escape, but found that direction had lost all meaning. Every path they took led back to the center of the trap. No matter which way they turned, the humans had created a maze made of space-time itself, and the Devourers were lost inside it. Lieutenant Colonel Oh Min-seok monitored the containment field from his engineering station. Spatial distortion is holding steady, he reported to Captain Yoon. All enemy vessels are now contained within the modified reality matrix. The Devourer fleet, which had seemed unstoppable just minutes before, was now completely helpless. They could not fire their weapons properly because their targets kept moving through dimensions they could not perceive. They could not retreat because the exit routes led back to where they started. They could not adapt because the attacks were not really attacks at all, but changes to the basic laws of physics in their immediate area. Captain Cha watched as thousands of enemy ships found themselves scattered across multiple dimensions. Their matter was not destroyed but redistributed through spatial configurations that made them unable to function as coherent vessels. The Devourers continued to exist, but in a state where they could never again threaten anyone. The space around the enemy fleet began to compress as the humans activated. The final phase of their containment system reality folded in on itself, creating a bubble of twisted space-time that was only a few kilometers across, but somehow contained the entire Devourer invasion force. Admiral Threck's voice came over the communication system filled with awe and confusion. Captain Yoon, what exactly did you just do to them? The Devourers are contained within a stable pocket dimension, Captain Yoon replied. They remain alive and conscious, but exist in a space where they cannot interact. With normal reality, they will be safe there for thousands of years. Counselor Vex could not believe what he was seeing on his instruments. The massive enemy fleet that had destroyed their combined forces was now trapped in a sphere of space barely, large enough to hold a single ship. But are they really contained? He asked. Can they escape? The mathematics of their prison make escape impossible, Captain Yoon explained. The dimensional matrix is self-sustaining and becomes stronger if they try to break free. Any attempt to leave only reinforces their containment. The surviving alien crews looked at their sensor readings in amazement. The battle was over. The Devourers, who had seemed unstoppable, were now trapped in a way that made them completely harmless. They could not attack anyone, could not consume any more worlds, and could not expand their mechanical empire. Commander Park Minho finally found his voice. Captain Yoon, how long have humans possessed this technology? Why did you not use it? Earlier, we used it at the optimal time, Captain Yoon replied. Earlier intervention would have prevented valuable learning experiences and might have caused unnecessary panic among our new allies, Dr. Choi Hyuna, the chief scientist aboard Harmony, spoke. Up from her station, the containment field will hold the Devourers safely while we study them. Over time, we hope to find ways to redirect their expansion drive toward uninhabited systems where they can continue their existence without threatening other species. The alien commanders were quiet as they tried to understand what had just happened. The humans had not destroyed their enemy. They had simply removed the threat while keeping the Devourers alive. This showed a level of mercy and technological sophistication that none of them had imagined possible. Major Seo Tae-hoon was studying the energy readings from the human ship. Sir, he reported to Admiral Threx, the power levels required for what we just witnessed should have required multiple star-sized energy sources. But the human vessel shows no signs of strain or power depletion. Captain Yoon heard the comment and decided to offer a small explanation. Our research into zero-point energy extraction allows us to draw power directly from the quantum vacuum. The amount of energy available is essentially unlimited. The words meant nothing to most of the alien listeners, but their science officers understood enough to be terrified. Zero-point energy was theoretical for every species in the galaxy. The idea that humans had not only solved the theory, but built practical applications was staggering. Lieutenant Bae Hyunwoo reported from his station. Captain, all enemy vessels are secure within the containment matrix. No hostile signatures detected. The threat has been completely neutralized. The transformed Harmony began to change again, folding back into dimensions the aliens could not see. The massive structure that had filled space with impossible geometry slowly compressed back into the form of a simple research vessel. Within minutes, it looked exactly like the ship that had arrived 6 hours earlier. Captain Kim Ji-soo was once again sitting in the command chair of what appeared to be a normal-sized spacecraft, her crew, working quietly at their stations as if bending reality and trapping an entire invasion fleet was just another day at the office. The alien fleets remained motionless in space, their crews trying to process what they had witnessed. The most dangerous enemy the galaxy had ever faced had been defeated not through superior firepower or military strategy, but through technology so advanced it might as well have been magic. Admiral Threx finally broke the silence. Captain Kim, I think we need to have a very long conversation about what humanity is really capable of. Captain Kim's smile could be heard in her voice. We would be happy to discuss our research, Admiral. After all, that is why we joined the Galactic Council. We have much to learn from each other. As the immediate crisis ended, the alien commanders began to realize that everything they thought they knew about humans and Earth was completely wrong. The small primitive species that had joined the Council just 5 years ago was actually the most technologically advanced civilization any of them had ever encountered. The question now was, what would happen next? 3 days after the battle that changed everything, the Galactic Council met again in emergency session, but this time the atmosphere was completely different. Instead of panic and fear, the great chamber was filled with curiosity, wonder, and not. A small amount of nervousness. Captain Lee Do-hyun walked to the center of the room while hundreds of alien eyes watched his every movement. Ambassador Cray stood at the main podium, his forearms shaking slightly as he tried to find the right words. Captain Lee. He began, his voice much quieter than usual. Your species has clearly possessed technology far beyond anything we imagined. Why did you hide these capabilities from the Council for 5 years? Lee looked around the chamber at all the alien faces staring at him. We did not hide anything. Ambassador, he said calmly, we told you exactly what we were sending to help defend against the Devourers. A research vessel. You made assumptions about what that meant based on your own understanding. Of technology. Counselor Vex leaned forward in his seat, his fish-like features showing confusion. But you let thousands of our people die, while you had the power to stop the enemy immediately. How can you justify watching our fleets get destroyed? Captain. Lee remained calm and patient. We intervened the moment your combined forces proved unable to handle the threat, he explained. Any earlier action would have prevented your military commanders from gaining valuable combat experience against adaptive enemies. This knowledge may prove useful in future encounters. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Some aliens shouted about human arrogance. Others demanded explanations for technology that seemed impossible. A few delegates walked out of the session. Shaking their heads in frustration, Lee waited quietly for the noise to die down before continuing. What you experienced 3 days ago was not a demonstration of superior firepower, he said when the room was quiet again. It was simply the application of scientific principles your civilizations have not yet discovered. We have been working with dimensional physics, quantum manipulation, and reality engineering for over 100 years. Commander Park Min-ho, who had been invited to speak for the military commanders, stood up slowly. Captain Lee, with all due respect, how is this possible? Our species have been exploring space for thousands of years. We have scientists who have studied physics for longer than your entire civilization has existed. How did humans advance so quickly? Lee smiled slightly. The answer is simple, Commander. We approached the fundamental questions differently. Your civilizations developed space travel technology and then used it to expand across the galaxy, spreading your existing knowledge but not necessarily deepening it. We stayed close to home and focused on understanding the deepest mysteries of existence itself. Dr. Choi Hyuna stepped forward to address the assembly. For the past century, human scientists have been working on what we call existential threat research. She gestured toward a holographic display that showed complex mathematical equations. The universe contains many dangers that cannot be fought with conventional weapons. The Devourers were exactly the type of enemy we prepared to face. The equations floating in the air meant nothing to most of the aliens, but their finest scientists began studying the formulas with growing amazement. The mathematics described ways of manipulating space-time, energy, and matter that were decades ahead of galactic standard. Theory. Ambassador Cray tried to maintain his composure. What do humans want from the galaxy? He asked. Why did you join the Council if you were so far beyond the rest of us? Technologically, Lee's expression became warmer and more sincere. The same thing we have always wanted. Ambassador, friends to explore the universe with knowledge, to share experiences with, and the security that comes from knowing when real threats emerge. We can face them together. Major Seo Tae-hoon had been studying the human technology displays for several minutes before raising his hand. Captain Lee, if your species can manipulate reality itself, why do you need allies at all? Why not simply reshape the galaxy to your preferences? Because that would be wrong, Lee replied firmly. The universe is not ours to control. We believe in cooperation, exploration, and mutual respect. Every species has something unique to contribute to galactic civilization. Humans may have advanced technology, but we still have much to learn about art, philosophy, culture, and ways of life. The chamber grew quiet as aliens considered his words. Many had expected humans to demand leadership of the council or special privileges. Because of their advanced capabilities instead, Earth seemed to want exactly what they had claimed to want from the beginning: peaceful cooperation and friendship. Counselor Vex spoke up again, his tone much less hostile than before. Captain Lee Yu said the Devourers are contained safely. Can they ever be released? Dr. Choi answered this question. The containment field will hold them for thousands of years, giving us time to study their technology and psychology. We hope to eventually find ways to redirect their expansion drive toward uninhabited regions of space, where they can continue existing without threatening other civilizations. Her words surprised many delegates. Most species would have simply destroyed such a dangerous enemy. But humans had chosen mercy, even for mechanical beings who had tried to consume the galaxy. Admiral Threx stood up to address the assembly. I have seen human technology in action, he announced. These people could have conquered the entire galaxy years ago if they had wanted to. Instead, they chose to join our council as equals and help defend us against threats we could not handle alone. Lieutenant Colonel Oh Min-seok was invited to explain some of the technical aspects of human capabilities. Our dimensional engineering allows us to build ships and equipment that exist partially outside normal space-time. He told the fascinated audience, this makes them appear smaller than they actually are and gives them access to energy sources from quantum dimensions. The alien scientists in the chamber began asking hundreds of technical questions about zero-point energy extraction, dimensional folding, reality manipulation, and space-time engineering. The humans answered as many questions as they could, while making it clear they were willing to share some of their knowledge with peaceful allies. Captain Lee raised his hand to get everyone's attention. There is one more thing you should understand, he announced. Earth did not develop this technology in isolation. We studied the remains of ancient civilizations that existed before any of our current species evolved. The universe has seen many cycles of rise and fall. We learned from those who came before us. This revelation caused another stir. In the chamber, the idea that humans had discovered and studied prehistoric alien technology explained how they had advanced so quickly. It also suggested that the galaxy had once been home to even more advanced civilizations that had somehow disappeared. Ambassador Cray called for order in the chamber. The question before us now, he announced, is what happens next. Do we welcome humanity as a full partner in galactic affairs, or do we allow fear of their capabilities to divide us? The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some aliens argued that humans could not be trusted with such advanced technology. Others insisted that Earth had proven their peaceful intentions by joining the Council as equals instead of conquerors. A few delegates suggested that humanity should be required to share all their technology immediately. In the end, the vote was closer than expected, but still decisive. Earth would be granted full membership in the Galactic Council with a permanent seat on the Security Committee. Human technology would be shared gradually with allied species as trust and understanding developed between civilizations. Captain Lee stood to address the chamber one final time. We came to the stars hoping to find friends and fellow explorers. He said, we found exactly what we were looking for. The galaxy is vast and full of wonders that no single species could discover alone. Together, we can explore mysteries that none of us could solve individually. As the session ended, aliens threw out